Sure.
All right. All right, the Affordable Housing Subcommittee meeting is now commenced. It's June 24th at 4 p.m. This meeting is being held virtually for those who are participating remotely. Do we have anybody participating remotely? One person, Corin. Oh, I guess we're all participating remotely. Mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using the call-in number, to unmute to speak, dial *6 on your phone, and that you may only use a chat function to request to speak. Also, to comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call. So let's see here. I think there's just there's 3 commissioners, and we're all here: Maggie, Marianne, and me. And David Wall is here, Corin Manning, Sarah Meganson, and Mike Edmonds. Hey, Mike.
Greetings.
Okay, so called to the audience. Is any of you want to speak? There's no audience members today.
Correct. There's nobody in the audience.
Okay, let's jump into it. So second agenda item is the Neighborhood Partnership Housing Services. So that's Marianne. You have that agenda item.
Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't get a hold of him and then I went on vacation. So I'll be working on it. Somebody over there was on vacation and then I went on vacation and I just got back. So I'll be in touch with them.
Okay, so we're tabling this to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is the letters for the full commission to approve, and I think that's also a carryover from our last one. Is that right?
I have a different agenda.
Yeah, what agenda are you looking at? I'm gonna paste in the chat the.
Oh, I'm on the wrong agenda. Sorry. Hang on. July 24th. Here we go. Call the audience. Okay.
Okay, good.
Found it. Okay. So I was looking, I was like, where's all the stuff that we talked about? Trying to figure that out. HCD update. This is the first agenda item. That's you, Sarah.
I know, and I just saw that and was like, oh no, what am I supposed to say?
Do you want to wait? You want to move that to 5?
No, it'll be fine. I'll just give a quick update. I don't have anything huge. We're in the process of hiring a bunch of positions. Everybody's super busy. We're moving forward on the Sugar Hill on Stone low-income housing tax credit project. And yeah, just staying very, very busy. So no real updates, but happy to answer any questions of any of the commissioners if they have any, but yeah.
I don't have any questions handy for HCD. Does anybody else?
No.
Cool. Then we're good. You can move on.
All right.
Send money.
All right. So the next agenda item is a QAP feedback from the commission. So this is something we talked about last month about there's a feedback session usually, and the QAP is a 24/25. So all they can really do is make minor tweaks. And I know David Wall has 1 point of feedback and I have 1 point of feedback. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it up and share the screen so we can all be looking at it here. Can you make me a presenter?
Hey, Jim, you should be able to present now.
Right. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so David, do you want to start with the employment section you've been talking about? I will try to find that here.
Sure.
It's under, keep going down, keep going down, keep going down. It's under, yeah, 9% D, no, down, 9% new construction. One more, there you go.
Okay.
Now go there, okay. Keep going down, stop. Okay. So. Right now, to get 5 points for being within proximity of an employment center, and proximity is defined as 2.5 miles in Pima and Maricopa counties, the 2 urban counties. It has to be a single employer with 250 or more year-round full-time employees in one location. So it's a 2-part test. A, does the company have at least 250 employees, year-round full-time employees, and are they in a single location? There are very, very few of those in either Pima County or the city of Tucson. There's the University of Arizona, there's Pima County, at the downtown government center. There's Davis-Monthan, which is how we got Belvedere Terrace through. But there aren't that many. And I presented this same proposal to the Pima County Regional Affordable Housing Commission, of which I am a member. And they approved this. So approve the recommendation I'm making. Can you, Jim, would it be okay if I put my thing up on the screen?
Sure.
Which I get, okay, so share. Oh, I need to be allowed to screen. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So.
Should be able to present now.
Okay,
David.
there we go. There we go. Okay, so. Can you all see that? Can you see? Okay.
Yep.
So what I am proposing is to add a criterion, which is either a single private company at one location or a single location, including but not limited to a shopping center or mall with multiple employers that in the aggregate has at least 250 year-round full-time employees, blah, 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 blah. If you are working at Tucson Mall, you have a job. If you're working at the University of Arizona, you have a job. If you're working at Raytheon, you probably don't qualify for affordable housing. If you were working at Tucson Mall, does it matter to ADOH if you're working at Macy's or Dillard's? You're working. The whole point of this is to be in proximity to employment. So what I am asking is that this commission sign on to a proposal that I will present to ADOH on my behalf, on behalf of the Pima County Regional Affordable Housing Commission, to make this change.
Yes.
Okay. I agree as well. I think that's a good change. So, Maggie, you got any thoughts, or Sarah?
I think it's why didn't anyone think of this sooner?
It really is just an issue in Tucson. It's not an issue as much of an issue in Phoenix because they have so many more
bigger employers.
bigger employers. Yeah. I mean, there's some call centers and things like that that probably meet it as well, but
I don't know how many employees they have. Year-round, full-time? Call centers are probably not full-time. They probably have people 20, 25 hours a week.
David, can you send that to me?
Sure.
Okay. Marianne?
Do you think we can, David, when do you want to send this out?
Well, I'm probably just going to present it at the focus group at the housing conference and then submit it in writing.
Okay, so do you think, Jim, that the whole commission should sign off on this, yeah? Not just this committee?
Sarah, is this something that should come from the city of Tucson or the commission?
I
Is
think,
this something that we want to recommend that mayor and council present to the state?
I mean, the way that, you know, like, I think, and I might ask David his thoughts too. I think the Affordable Housing Subcommittee is more focused on low-income housing tax credit and the QAP, right? I think that I think this body could sign David's created a letter, right, David? And you're gonna basically sign it from the Pima County Regional Affordable Housing Commission.
Well, I haven't figured out how I'm gonna do it. I will make note that they have endorsed it. And that,
And I think that the Affordable Housing Subcommittee can also endorse, and it seems like it's in the purview of the subcommittee more so than like the full commission, but we could run that by Anne. And I don't
Yeah.
know, I know in the past.
I don't think so. I think we
I
need
don't
to
think
run
so
it by
either.
the full commission. We've had this discussion, and so what
Yeah.
what I'm proposing is that we, you know, take what David did. We do a little blurb to the, you know, commissioners and get them to do a vote on it. Or because our next meeting isn't until August, right? And that's
Well, it's
when
next,
we,
Did we put this as an agenda item on our commission, our full commission? We haven't released that agenda yet.
Right, the agenda is not complete, so we can put it on.
okay. Then
Yeah,
I think
let's-
that's what we do. We get the full commission's sign off. I don't see it being a problem.
There's one other adjustment I would like to see come from the commission. And that is the tribal set-asides. I'm going to share another document. So this is the wards from 2024. Can you guys see this? So I put all the submittals and everything into a spreadsheet. The projects with an X are the ones that received an award. So in Rincon Manor in Tucson got an award, and Garfield received an award. Only 2 projects from the general pool received an award. Everything else was from a set aside. So there were 3 rural set asides. The state did 2 special projects. So one of them was Sugar Hill on Stone, which is a Tucson project. And then Sidney P. Osborne, which is a Choice Neighborhoods project in Phoenix.
other way around. Sugar Hill was the Choice Neighborhoods, and Sidney P. Osborne was Unique Opportunity.
Oh, isn't it also in the Choice Neighborhood?
It is, but they didn't go in on, well, either it didn't go in on Choice Neighborhoods or they didn't fund it on Choice Neighborhoods.
Yeah, okay. Well, basically, both of those are the 2 Choice Neighborhood submittals.
Yeah.
Then only 1 rehab. I thought there were 3 set-asides for rehab, but they only did 1, which happened to be another Tucson project. So Tucson did well, but we got lucky, I think. And then there's the 2 tribal projects. So the concern that I had when I was looking at this list is you start looking at the project cost per unit, and the tribal projects, one of them is $755,000 a unit. The other is $577,000 a unit. So they're each requesting 2.5 million. You do the math on it. The tribes received 22% of the tax credit allotment to build 68 units. There's a consulting group that does all the tribal submittals, and they only let 2 projects go in, and so it's not a competitive process for the tribes. And I know the contractor that's building a previous award, and a lot of the money that they're using is going towards amenities for the tribe, not towards housing. And that's the reason that the costs are so high, is it's not all going towards housing. You look at the project costs, the Sidney P. Osborne is an expensive project, but I don't know why, but the rest of them, well, this one's also pretty pricey, but the average is like 400,000 a door. And the average of the two tribal deals is $666,000 a unit. And in the past 3 rounds, the state forward allocated an extra 50% tax credits. So the 2 set-asides wasn't a huge burden. But here it's becoming a burden when you only have 2 projects from the general pool, which, by the way, are generating 84 units and 60 units. They're competitive. Those are competitive projects. It's 144 units. They have the same tax credit awards as 68. So you're getting 2.5 times the number of units. But if there was another project that could have gotten into the general pool, I think Shasta Apartments would have received it, or potentially Helen Drake, one of those 2. But the city of Tucson could have received another project. And so looking at the QAP, I'm going to stop sharing this. Any questions on that list? So going back to the QAP. So ADOH is going to make 2 9% awards. And I think I'd prefer to see something more along the lines of 10% or 12% of the LIHTC credits will be allocated to the tribes, as opposed to saying 2 awards, which can make up 22% of the total allocation, to try to get more in the general pool. I think if you go back like 7 or 8 years, David, maybe you know this, but didn't it used to be a percentage?
No,
It's always been 2?
2 or 3. No, it's always been a specific number of projects. I don't think they've ever done anything based on a percentage of the available pool. I mean, the only thing in there is a requirement of federal law that 10% of the available credits be allocated to nonprofits, but that's never an issue, so they don't even bother with that. But everything else is always no more than 2 there are 3 balance of state, otherwise known as rural projects, X number of tribal deals. It's, in my recollection, it's never been a percentage of the available credits.
Part of the reason that I want to propose this is, from what I'm hearing, 2025 is going to be as bad or worse than 2024. And there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were 10 awards in 24. You know, so the state is looking at reducing the cap, which means projects are going to get smaller. And it actually raises the per unit price because you lose economies of scale by doing that. They're looking at making a bunch of changes to try to get the number of awards up. I just think it's too high of a percentage going to the tribes. I mean, that's just, and maybe it's a politically incorrect thing to say, but
I won't say it's politically incorrect, but it's certainly politically impractical.
so is it a bad thing to ask for?
That's when I would probably let discretion be the better part of valor.
Okay.
I do think that there can be a conversation, a side conversation, Jim, on the cost per unit for those.
I've had that conversation with ADOH already,
Okay,
and their response was to write them a letter. But the problem I have is they're not using the tax credits for the intended purposes.
Yeah,
And I have a problem with that.
I agree. If housing is really necessary and a loss, it should be for housing units.
I'm happy to just write a letter for myself personally.
Yeah,
If you guys aren't comfortable with that, we won't recommend it. I'm okay with that.
I think it would be. Going back to the politics of it, I think it would be unwise to put the city of Tucson's name behind that.
Yeah, okay, all right, you're right.
And
Can
Jim-
I,
Oh, go ahead.
go
Becky.
ahead, Sarah. Well, I just, I think it's, I'm, every time I look at these spreadsheets, being that I do single family homes, I'm always surprised at the price. And so I want to be respectful to what you all do, and I really need to understand how we justify that cost. Cause I think it's really, like, I could buy 2 houses for $500,000, well, more or less, fixer uppers, right? So how do we justify that? I know I brought it up before but I really do wanna understand that. It's,
Well, you can buy 2 houses, which is great, and I'm all for it. But that you don't have to deal with with the 12 layers of lawyers I have to deal with, and the rather, 20, probably 20% of that is soft costs. Now, some of that includes architecture, but I mean, there's just an absurd amount of money that goes into paying other people that don't go into the bricks and mortar or sticks or stucco.
Yeah, and I would also argue, if you look at the full life cycle costs, of the cost to maintain, the utilities, the management of trying to rent a house, versus a multifamily where you can have, one maintenance person maintain 50 to 100 units.
well, I'm talking home ownership though,
Oh, well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's still, if you look at the total life cycle costs, it does come more in line. A lot of the stuff that's done for apartments, I think they're held to a higher standard. You have to meet the building code, not the residential code. So you got fire separation issues, you got smoke, sprinklers, fire alarms, ADA, fire assemblies, fair housing. There's all sorts of things that go into a multifamily project that you don't have to worry about in a single family.
Well, I want that, I want light to come, money for affordable home ownership. How do we do that?
well, you could do a tax credit project with home ownership, but it has to be really big. And, I've worked on a couple of them in Phoenix in the past, and they're scattered housing and it's very hard to maintain. And, it had to be for rental, not home ownership.
Right, now
And it could be rent to own, but it's very complicated and it's a pain in the ass. But what Jim has good points on construction costs, but David has really good points on the costs that we're paying lenders and architects. And, I just wish in both of those areas and lawyers that the state would put a cap on them. And cap that just like they cap the contractors, and save a bunch of money so we can either build more housing or more money can go to other projects. Because we've done tax credits in this state for a long time and it's boilerplate for the most part. Yet we're still paying attorneys $120,000 and lenders a whole bunch of money, just.
Like that.
Yeah, and architects who have, boilerplate, designs. I just think it's ridiculous.
I'm gonna stand up for my architects. They don't do boilerplate design on them. I'm perfectly happy paying my architect to do a good quality design.
That's true, but, cap it.
I mean, it's not
You're
it's not
happy
a
to
certain, it's not a certain nonprofit developer in town that puts up shoe boxes.
And the other thing is that, it's not us.
No, it's not you.
So, but, they cap the contractor. And we love our contractors and we want them to do good work, and they cap them. So what the hell? Why not? Why aren't they capping these other ones? Anyway, that's been my private letter to the state for like 5 years. You want more money for housing? Cap these costs.
Okay, so kind of bringing this thing back, what I'd like to do is
Thank you.
I'll put the recommendation in a letter from the commission, and we'll present that to the overall commission. Hopefully it's not contentious. I don't think it will be. The tribal one probably would be. I don't know what I was thinking, actually, now that I think about it.
I think David's plan it makes it really workable, it makes sense. And it's clear, good direction.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, let's move on. Any other final comments or thoughts on the QEP?
I was just gonna chime in and say, I remember the last time this came up. I think the commission had suggestions and the commission moved those forward. And then HCD and the city are also coming up with their own comments, and I think we sent those as separate, right? So it's like the commission is a separate body from the city, even though it's a city commission, but I think you don't have to wait for HCD to sign on. I think the commission can make that decision next week and you guys create your own letter to move forward to ADOH.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, okay, the next agenda item is the impact fee changes. So Corin has joined us. So every 5 years, I think we talked about this a little bit before. I shared that that spreadsheet last time of all of the different costs that are associated with doing a new development. And there are very few levers. Should we pull that up again? You guys remember that from last meeting?
Let's look at it again, Jim.
Okay.
The spreadsheet you were gonna share with us?
Was I supposed to email that out?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
But you went on vacation.
yeah, running with the bulls.
I'll do that right now. I'll send it out right now, if I can find it. Here it is. Okay, let me email this to you guys.
You can just put it in the chat.
Can I put an attachment in there?
I don't know.
That I don't know. Maybe just a link.
Yeah, I don't know if you can attach a file.
Yeah.
Mike Edmonds. Hutchinson. Okay, I think I've got everybody. Okay, I just hit send. Right, so this is what we looked at last time. So it was kind of broken up into buckets on governmental fees, City of Tucson based on code requirements, affordable housing related costs, other soft costs, and then future costs due to the 24 building code changes. And the reason that I was working on this was, well, it's two reasons. First, I've heard a couple people throw out statistics that 50% of the cost of construction is due to government regulation. And so I was trying to justify if that's really true or not. And then secondly, I've also heard from some developers that do construction in Arizona and Texas, that Texas is about 15% less expensive to build in than Arizona or Tucson or Phoenix. And so part of it was trying to understand how that could be and why those costs would be less. So if you look at the areas that the city controls, there's water meters, impact fees, sales tax. You could argue that all of the City of Tucson costs, which would be any potential zoning restrictions, EV ordinance, stormwater, and trash collection. This one's a pretty loosey-goosey item. And I haven't done anything since our last meeting. I know there was an action item there to, we're going to look at that again. Affordable housing related costs. There's nothing that the City of Tucson can do with these costs. They are what they are. Other soft costs kind of are the same thing. Insurance, architecture, FF&E, financing, land. The city can't do anything about that. The city does have the ability of deciding if and when to implement the 24 IBC. So in this whole list of $161,000 per unit, there's really 5 items that the city has control over. Water meter fees, which are lower than I think most other areas. Impact fees, sales tax, and then everything else is code related. So you got the current codes and then the future codes. So any questions on this before we kind of move over to the impact fee discussion? So Corin shared this with me earlier. Every 5 years, the city has to go through and do an analysis on impact fees. So this is where they were back in 2019 when they were going through the assessment at that time. So at that time, the current impact fee schedule for single family was roughly $10,000 a door. And for multifamily, it was roughly $6,200 a door. And you can, these are the different categories. So you got parks and rec, police, fire, and streets. And after the change, the multifamily and single family residential were combined. And Corin, correct me if I'm misstating this, but in general, apartments, let's see here. What I remember is apartments went up, but single family residential went down. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I think it's really just that we stopped charging by the housing unit and created a scale so that it depends on the size of the housing unit. So it's on a square footage basis. So as you can see in that table, it depends on the size of the housing unit, whereas it says for a comparison below, you can see it was by apartment previously. So we kind of changed the calculation. So it's hard to compare apples to apples. I mean, you could look at a 50-unit building and see how that was calculated previously. And now I'm not sure how that would line up exactly. But as
Okay.
you can see, if you look at the like asterisk below, it's just every single family home was charged the same, every apartment was charged the same prior to the last update of our impact fee schedule. So we tried to make it, this was actually driven by a goal of making it more equitable to really reflect the impact of different size housing units that, you know, a 2,000 square foot home has a different impact than a, you know, 1,000 square foot or less apartment. That was the idea.
So I guess our question here, so my thought was that, you know, specifically multifamily, I believe has less impact for parks and recs and streets for the simple reason that a lot of apartment complexes have the amenities built into the project. So the tenants tend to not use the parks as frequently as maybe a single family house. And then people who live in apartments tend to use public transportation more than people who live in single family homes. So I would say police and fire, I think the impact to, my personal feeling is the impact of an apartment is going to be about the same as an impact to a house. And, you know, the reason I guess I'm bringing this up is in general right now, and I talked to a lot of different developers, a lot of both market rate and affordable housing developers. And we're just not seeing a lot of multifamily housing get built right now in the city of Tucson. So there's a couple of projects downtown. There's some student housing projects, and then the lion's share of everything else is, well, there's a couple of senior projects I think that are in the pipeline that are kind of aged in place. You have a apartment that goes to assisted to skilled nursing. So I know there's a couple like that, but in general, we're not seeing a lot of the multifamily projects in the city limits. I think part of that is because there's not very much land available. It's difficult to find sites that are good for multifamily, that are zoned properly. But I think if there's anything that we can do to incentivize more of that with the impact fees, at the end of the day, the city will do much better by having those units in place than trying to collect additional fees. And I think a lot of the projects right now are dying by 1,000 paper cuts. You know, it's a combination of interest rates, construction costs, land costs. Everything is getting more difficult to do. Right now, projects are, I think rents are starting to drop, market rate rents are starting to drop a little bit. So that's creating additional challenges. Banks are tightening up their lending standards. So they're not having the same loan to value now that they were 2 years ago. So it used to be it was easy to get 75% loan to value. I think now what I'm hearing is like 55% loan to value, which means that developers have to bring 45% equity to the table on a project. So you know, I don't know if it's how much of a difference it'll make, but if it does generate a couple of projects, I think it's worthwhile maybe trying to pull that back out, is my personal opinion. So is this, Megan, you want to go ahead?
I just wanted to clarify, Jim, are you saying that you're wanting to see the impact fees lowered for multifamily across the board, not related to affordability?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the entire housing spectrum, you know, we have a housing shortage right now. We need housing, you know, at every level. We need, there's an affordability problem. So you know, I've talked to Omar Morales with HSL. You know, he's basically said he doesn't want to build in the city of Tucson anymore. He's probably the biggest multifamily developer in the city. Ross McAllister with MC Companies, all of his projects are outside the city limits. There's a lot of the big local developers that are doing this stuff are building outside the city limits. And I think as a gesture of, you know, trying to kind of attract some of that business back to the city, this would be one thing that we could do that would, you know, maybe make them reconsider coming back.
So these are the impact fees now in effect?
Yes.
Huh, I think I got overcharged for Belvedere. No, I'm serious. I'm gonna send Sarah the calcs.
Well, I mean, I guess what's everybody else's thoughts on this? Is this something that you guys want to process and maybe readjust later? I think, Corin, you've got till January to make a formal proposal to mayor and council.
Yes, and just to be clear, PDSD led this update 5 years ago when we were addressing impact fees and making these updates. This update is actually being led by the finance department. So PDSD is not as involved this time around. I mean, we're reviewing a lot of the documents, the background analysis, and we're aware and coordinating with finance, but the finance team is leading this. I do believe there will be some more stakeholder engagement this fall because we'll be releasing some reports in the next month or two, I want to say. The land use analysis, land use assumptions will be released, I think in September was a target I heard, you know, about a month or two ago. So that was the schedule at that point. And then yes, next January is the target for the formal public hearings. Mayor and council, I think, adopt 60 days after that.
So,
or have up to 60 days. I think it's 30 to 60 days after the public hearing. So there will be opportunity for stakeholder input this fall, I believe, and then formal public hearings with mayor and council.
I'm going to put the link in the chat here. You guys can see.
And then, sorry, if I can ask a second question, I feel like I might be missing something, but I mean, overall, so they're proposing significant decreases across the board for housing. Is that what on that?
I don't.
Just to clarify, this is the proposal from 5 years ago. So
Oh, we're not even looking at, like, the whole document is from 5 years ago.
Correct. This
Oh
is
my
what
gosh.
this is what happened 5 years ago. And I don't know exactly what they're thinking about for this round.
I don't think a proposal's been released yet.
Okay.
A
Thank
proposed
you.
fee level.
Got it.
Sarah, do you know? I don't think.
No, and I don't think, you know, so it's state mandated that they have to be updated every 5 years, right? But when we do an update, we don't have to go through a full update like we did 5 years ago. So we did do a drastic change, more drastic change. And to speak to the equity reason, like the reason why it changed from, you know, just multifamily and housing was really equity based. And we were actually really progressive in adopting that. Like other places across the state haven't done that yet. And it's touted as a really equitable way to assess impact fees so that a 500 square foot apartment isn't getting charged the same amount as a 3,000 square foot house. So that change was pretty much what happened the last time around. And I'm pretty sure from what I've heard, this update is more to just check a lot of the boxes for the state requirements, not do any major changes, but follow all the steps. And a lot of it really is about reporting out how you've spent the impact fees and how you plan to spend them again for the next 5 years. So a lot of it's more on the back end than the front end. So but I agree. And I think we can get someone from that project team to maybe come and speak to the commission and give an update from, so it's not me and Corin not actually being a part of it this time around. So we'll try to coordinate that for one of the future subcommittee meetings for sure. Yeah.
Okay, Marianne?
Yeah, Sarah, I was gonna ask that, and then if we could do it, I think our next meeting is in August, so if we could get them in August, that would be great.
And
So-
Jim, I know we had talked about this previously, and I think it's worth trying to figure out how to pull it together. But I know that I think this was all done 5 years ago. There was a thought that maybe it made it more impactful for multifamily. And I think we really need to see what that looks like. And so I think we just have to kind of run numbers on a project then and a project now, hypothetical, what it looked like then, what it looks like now, and just sort of see how much the numbers went up that last time. And I know that there's a lot of I had talked to Tischler Beast folks, the consultant working on this, and there's a lot of discussion nationally about impact fees and affordable housing. And so I think there's potential to start having that conversation as we move into the public comment period, and figure out maybe there's things we don't even know about that can help, because we do have our subsidy program and we are trying to subsidize with funds as much as we can for impact fees. So there might be other creative ways that we just don't know about yet too.
Is it possible to have a different fee structure for affordable housing projects?
That's a legal question. I think I would say probably not. But we can kind of look into that.
Because then, the city wouldn't have to pull from the general fund to help offset some of it.
There's probably something that says there have to be uniform standards, but as Sarah says, that's a lawyer question.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have any other comments or thoughts on this? So at this point, takeaway is we're not going to make any recommendations at the time. Sarah's going to see if we can get somebody from the budget office to kind of talk about the direction that they're moving for this next round. And if we can ask them if we think they should make any tweaks at that time. Is that right? Okay. All right. Agenda items for next month. One of the things we talked about this morning in terms of the overall commission meeting is trying to work closer with the county's Affordable Housing Commission in terms of looking at what it would take to do an affordable housing bond initiative. And I think what is going to come out of that is we're probably going to establish a subcommittee that's going to work on that, to see if that's something that is feasible, where it can get put on the ballot to help financially support future affordable housing projects. And we're going to need volunteers to participate in that subcommittee. So I don't know if it's something that maybe we just have this subcommittee kind of work on that as one idea. I think we are starting to struggle a little bit for agenda items. One of the things that we had talked about that the mayor had asked us to do was look at what other cities are doing to help incentivize affordable housing, and it's been a challenge to find those plans. And it will take some work to review them and see if there's anything that we can pull out that could be recommended to the city. I actually think that from a planning perspective, the city's done a very good job through the P-CHIP process and the HAST plan of identifying, just most of the things that can be done to incentivize affordable housing. Just a question of which ones are going to get executed upon. So maybe we go back and fall back on that again and see if there's anything else there that we want to try to push. But I guess I'd like to ask the commission, what else do you guys think we should be focused on moving forward? Marianne?
Oh, well, I definitely think it's working closer with the Pima County Commission on that bond deal. And I also think that anything that we do find out in the world with regard to some creative or innovative housing, that we are looking for that as well. And monitoring, any QAP changes that we would like to see made. But for right now, I really would like to, I think we need to follow up with the letters that went out as well. We need to be coming back with a follow-up on what happened, what the response is, what city staff are doing with regards to those directions.
Okay, so follow up on previous recommendations.
Yeah, that the council has approved, and then our recent letters that went to the council. There were 2 of them.
Yeah, just making some notes here. Maggie?
Well, along with the working with the county on the bond resolution, I think that we should also include mortgage revenue bond. Both the city and the county participate through their respective IDAs and that's for affordable home ownership. Rates are pretty high, and so I think it's a possibility, and at least a discussion as to why we have not done mortgage revenue bonds. Well, they're doing Lighthouse, but it's not the same.
You're on mute, Megan.
I was just saying it is a mortgage revenue bond. I don't know. I think Maggie has a familiarity with ones that were done in the past that may be different.
Well, they were specific for low to mod, and they were specifically for the people we target right now.
Which the Lighthouse is still low to moderate income. I think dynamics of supply are driving who's utilizing those the most. And then I would say how quickly they're being used up. I know the last one is 25 million bond that was fully reserved within, I don't know, 24 to 48 hours.
Well, that's why I think like more reserved for a specific low to mod, like up to 80% of AMI, because the Lighthouse goes up quite a bit higher. And so those that are higher income are able to then gobble up the funds. I'd like to kind of talk more about the mortgage revenue bonds. I guess you're right, historically, which are for, lower income. And, very comparable to historically what we used to do is, used to require, homebuyer education, etc., which these do or don't. I'm not sure, do they require it? Yeah. Well, anyways, so have a more robust discussion on that.
So Maggie, can you help me kind of flush out that agenda item?
It's just basically discussion on maybe more mortgage revenue bonds that protect the low mod income for low to moderate income specifically versus including a higher income that that then comes in and uses all of the funds. I mean, it's done well.
Right. The one thing I would say is mortgage revenue bonds are under a specific provision of the Internal Revenue Code, and they're different from county or city general obligation bonds.
Right.
So it's kind of an apples and oranges thing. I'm not sure. I mean, GO bonds are, general obligation bonds are general obligation. They're not revenue bonds, which are paid from the mortgage payments. So I think there are two different things. Yes, the IDAs, the city and county IDAs maybe should be doing a more robust IDA, mortgage revenue bond program if they can. But I don't think the county or the city have the ability to put a mortgage revenue bond program to voters, as opposed to a general obligation bond housing program as it's done in the past.
Right, but both of them are quasi government entities, the city and the county IDAs, and they do actually, get direction from their respective government boards, mayor, councils, board of supervisors. I just would, like to open up that discussion. It's yeah, and a little bit more protected for those that are low to moderate, 80% of AMI, which is the population that we serve. They don't really have much of a chance of getting, I don't know what those numbers are, but I just know that we don't help very many people get the Lighthouse project because they're just used up so fast. Just more money. That would be nice.
Yeah.
I have a
All right.
question for Maggie, if I could. So does the Lighthouse funds, and Megan too, do they come into our respective jurisdictions from the feds? And can then the city or the county decide to set some of those funds aside in its plan, in its 5-year plan? That's a question that you might want to ask about. I don't know, just an idea. I have no idea how this works, so.
The city and the county and the IDAs can define who receives them, like who are the participants. They can define that.
I think Maggie's right. I think they have ability, but I'm not entirely certain how those determinations are. If like there is also a target area that it applies, and I think there's a manufactured set aside as well. And so I'm not entirely certain what control, where those decision and control come in.
So the
So-
manufacturer and the location is determined by the initial funding source or by the jurisdiction?
I don't believe it's by the jurisdiction. I would assume
Okay.
that it's related to the bonds, but yeah. But I am not the most knowledgeable about the ins and outs of these programs.
I just know that back in the day.
Okay,
when I
we
was
can't go back to the day anymore.
Back in the day.
Yeah, we can't do that anymore. That
Back in the day.
ain't gonna happen.
We did have mortgage revenue bonds that actually had down payment assistance tied to it. I used to sit on the board of the IDA like 5 million, 14 years ago. And I just remember saying, why don't we bring those back? And, I remember there was a Scott Riffle from, I don't even know who he's with, but he's there.
Stifel and Company.
Yeah, so he's there, and he, there's all this talk of negative arbitrage and Lolly's like financial terms, and you're just like, what? Obviously, rates, while they're low, doesn't make sense. But now that we have higher rates, why are we not discussing this for like home ownership? Like Lighthouse is a great program, but like I said, and they're offering a 6%, right? 6.125 or 6% rate with 4% down payment assistance. And I don't even know what the income parameters are, but I know it's higher than the 80%. And so you know, then it's gone in like, what did you say, Megan, 20 minutes? It was committed. in-
Slightly better than that, but
Yeah,
I think it's like within fully reserved. I mean, so there are some that come back around because you have 60 days, I think, then to do your to purchase close.
right. So anyways. Just more money.
And there, yeah, I think there's a lot of investment from the IDAs of cash required to bring these bonds. So the dynamics have definitely changed significantly over the last few years, but maybe someone could come and speak a bit more.
Maybe
From
that's
one of the IDAs, I'm sure either Michael Slania or Dre Thompson would probably be happy to come and speak.
Yeah. Maybe that's an idea. That's. for
Very
the-
good.
I think that would be good.
Why don't you ask him, Maggie?
I can ask them. Who would it be, Mike? Dre?
I'd
Scott
say Dre.
Russell?
I like Dre.
I think Dre.
We like Dre.
We like Dre.
Yeah,
She's
I do know-
super positive.
Yeah, yeah, Mike, I mean, I like Mike a lot, but that says something about Mike that I like him a lot.
I will say though, that I know the Tucson IDA hasn't been able to participate in all of the issuances of them, and so yeah, so there's a little bit of a distinction, but Dre definitely can, I think, come and explain the program.
Who's the county person? The county
That's
ID?
Mike Slania.
He's with the he's the
Yeah, he's
county?
the county
Oh, yeah,
ID.
yeah. It was Russo and Russo, right? Yes.
Yeah.
I've just seen them so long, for so many years now. Okay. I'll reach out to Dre.
All right, so does anybody else have any other agenda items that they want to talk about the next meeting?
The date of the next meeting. It is August 21. For those of us going up to whatever god awful venue the housing forum is going to be at and going up Wednesday night. So that we're there bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on Thursday morning.
Yeah, is everybody okay pushing it back a week to the 28th?
Yeah.
Thanks for catching that, David. Who's going to that? You are. Good.
And Anne and Johanna are going from HCD.
Okay. Corin?
I just want to say in terms of future agenda items, either in August or September, we can provide an update on our proposed fast track permitting process for affordable housing. That's one of the items that was on the list of suggestions to Mayor and Council that they gave us direction on. So we've been kind of crafting that internally, and we'd like feedback from this group. So either hopefully we're ready to share a draft in August, but it will be in one of the next couple meetings.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, everybody.